Further ado then, I'm delighted to introduce Lara Marshall, who's the library's engagement manager at the RNIB, who's going to host today's session.
Thank you so much, Helen. That was great. Thank you all so much for being here with us today. One of the things that, I'm really passionate about working for the RNIB and also share the vision too, is to make sure that obviously reading is accessible to everybody. And as fantastic as specialist libraries like the RNIB library, Calibre, Guide Dogs Customize are, it's all about options. And you guys in public library have some fantastic resources in terms of your digital apps that you provide. And so today we're going to be looking at PressReader. We're going to be talking to Jim Clayton from PressReader just to have a general overview of the accessibility, and then also talk to Devinder, who runs an organization called Personalize, who has lived experience of sight loss, talk about his experience of using the PressReader app. So I will pass over to Jim. Over to you, Jim.
Jim, you're just on mute at the moment.
There we go. Sorry, that's the first technical glitch of the day done, hopefully, and out of the way. Yeah, jumping between Teams and Google Meet and Zoom can be a little bit confusing sometimes where the buttons are and everything. So good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for having me. And special thanks to Lara at RNIB and Libraries Connected for arranging this session. My name is Jim Clayton, and I'm the Territory Manager for the UK and Ireland at PressReader. I'm still quite new to the company. I joined just before the Libraries Connected annual seminar in June, where I was lucky enough to meet some of you, including Lara, for the first time. I know that many of your libraries already have PressReader as one of your key digital resources, and for that, I'd like to say a big thank you right at the beginning. PowerPoint fans might be a little bit disappointed that I'm not going to, that I'm actually just going to talk for 10 minutes. So there's no fancy slides or videos and no reading through what's already in front of you. However, what I would like to talk about is something that's very close to our hearts at PressReader and incredibly important for you and absolutely critical for many of your patrons, and that's accessibility. The breadth and variety of our catalogue, over 7,500 of the best newspapers and magazines from over 120 countries around the world and in over 60 languages, caters for even the most diverse communities. And this is the bedrock of our offer. That's our starting point. This vast and diverse catalogue allows our partners to promote a truly inclusive service to their patrons. There is a language, subject, interest, hobby, or passion for anyone in our catalogue. PressReader can even provide accurate automatic translation between 39 languages, and that number is growing as we add more languages around the world. Welsh was added earlier on this year. Maori is the most recent one, but we're constantly looking at communities where language is incredibly important to them and having that, and this is providing accessibility. This opens so many doors to a wealth of opportunity, and this is not just great for language learning or truly comprehensive research, but crucially, it also allows communities to connect and understand each other. Audio has been a standard feature of the PressReader offering for a number of years, and many publishers now provide their titles to us in a compatible format. However, to be as inclusive as possible, our service also has to be accessible. So it's with this in mind that I'd like to talk about how accessibility mode on PressReader is helping libraries open the world of newspapers and magazines to many readers, particularly those who are blind or visually impaired, and why that matters so much for the communities that you guys serve. So accessibility matters. You don't need me to tell you that libraries have always stood for equal access to information. You're often the first line of connection for people who might otherwise be left out, whether that's because of financial barriers, language, or additional needs. But for people who are blind or have impaired vision, traditional print materials and even many digital formats can actually create walls instead of doors. And this is a huge issue. I don't like throwing numbers in at things like this, but I believe that according to the World Health Organization, more than 2.2 billion people worldwide have a vision impairment or blindness. And the RNIB will tell us that in the UK, more than 2 million people are living with sight loss. And yet globally, fewer than 10% of published works are available in accessible formats. That's a huge information gap. And you guys, libraries, are uniquely placed to help to close that gap. So that set the scene. How about PressReader's accessibility mode? This was designed from the ground up to make our catalogue, thousands of newspapers and magazines, as you'll remember, usable for blind and low vision readers. So here's how it works. It integrates seamlessly with the most popular screen readers. Lots of acronyms and abbreviations in this space, such as JAWS, NVDA, and VoiceOver. They're among the many that are supported by the PressReader accessibility mode. It transforms the reading experience by presenting text in a simplified linear format that screen readers can navigate naturally. Readers can adjust font sizes, contrast, and navigation to suit their individual needs. The mode is easy to activate. Users can toggle it on from their profile or accessibility settings, and it automatically remembers their preference for the next time. This means that someone using a screen reader can browse, open, and read the same publications as any other user in the same space on the same platform. That's really important. This opens up resources to people who have visual impairment. For blind and visually impaired patrons, accessibility mode is more than a tool. It's actually a doorway to independence. They can stay informed with their local newspaper, they can read magazines about their hobbies and interests, and they can access global news sources without needing assistance. With accessibility mode, readers no longer need to rely on someone else to interpret or read content to them. They can explore freely, just like any sighted reader. And for many, that's not just about information, it's about belonging. And it tells them that your library belongs to them too. So in terms of serving the wider community, by helping patrons enable accessibility mode in your PressReader access, you're doing more than just activating a feature. You're actually strengthening your library's commitment to inclusion. And again, as you already know, this is what that can mean for you. You can expand your reach to a broader audience, including patrons who may not currently visit the library because they assume that resources may not be accessible. You position your library as a champion of digital equity in your community. That's really important. And you support lifelong learning and social participation for all residents, regardless of their abilities. Libraries that promote accessible digital reading often see increased engagement, stronger community partnerships, and even in the current climate, and I know these opportunities are limited now, new funding opportunities which can be tied to inclusion and accessibility initiatives. So enabling and promoting accessibility mode for you guys is simple. And the first step is my only real sales message for today. And that's number one, make sure that your library has PressReader. Following on from that, I would strongly encourage all of you to explore this feature for yourselves. Devinder will be going into some of that detail about how it actually works and what his experience is. But please encourage your colleagues to explore the feature so that they can assist patrons in the best way possible to use this great feature. And then finally, to promote it through your library website, through newsletters or accessibility events. Now, remember that for both new and long-standing customers of PressReader, our support team is always here to help with setup or staff training whenever it's needed. Please just reach out to us whenever you feel that is needed. In preparing for this, I've actually also noticed that there is a gap in our Tools for Success, which is the digital promotion material that we provide for you guys to be able to promote access to the general population. We are missing at the moment an information piece about accessibility mode, and that's something that I'm picking up internally as a consequence of being asked to do this. So to be truly inclusive and accessible, our tools also have to be as usable as possible. And as I said, in a minute or two, Devinder is going to talk about his personal experience of using PressReader recently and the PressReader accessibility mode. no technology is ever the final finished article. And this is, again, another really important point. Our team is constantly developing and improving our product. And this is most successful when we're acting positively on input from our partners and from their patrons. So again, please engage with your patrons on this issue, and triple please send me any comments or suggestions that you get, because this is how we're able to constantly evolve and improve the product that we're actually offering. I'll ask that my email and also a link to our accessibility mode explanation page on PressReader is shared with all participants today afterwards. So to wrap up, I just want to bring it back to one simple idea, that accessibility isn't just a feature, it's a philosophy. When libraries and platforms like PressReader work together to remove barriers, we're not just improving access, we're empowering people. Every reader deserves to be informed, connected, and inspired. And accessibility mode is one small step in helping to make that possible. One article, one reader, one community at a time. So thank you so much for the work that you guys do every day to make your libraries welcoming to everybody. And thank you for partnering with us to try to ensure that no reader is left behind. And thanks very much for your time and attention today.
That's amazing. Thank you, Jim. That's awesome. We've already got some questions in the chat. I've got to say thank you guys for your questions in the chat. That's brilliant. What I will do, please keep putting them in. We won't miss them out. But I think what we'll do, I'll let Davinder talk about his experience. And then at the end, all three of us can address your questions together, if that's okay. So please don't feel like we're ignoring you. Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. And then, yeah, because of course, you know, we need to know what it's like for a user with lived experience. I would love to introduce my ex-colleague from RNIB, Davinder, who now runs his own accessible technology training company. So without further ado, Davinder, over to you.
Thanks, Lara. Morning, everyone. So yeah, like Lara kindly mentioned, former colleague of Lara, used to be a technology trainer for RNIB for over 10 years, started Personalized last year, because basically like myself, a lot of other people who are blind and partially sighted, things change and systems change. And I'm sure most of on the call know that life is full of change. So I think a lot about what we're trying to do when I teach and we try and do these discussions is to frame it in a way of, okay, how do we know that the environment is suitable, but actually from a digital inclusion perspective, that people have the knowledge and skills to do and get where they want to be. So when I first went through my journey, it was using low vision tools, so high contrast, making sure the environment was a good font color or something like Arial. And through to my now journey with even less vision, using a guide dog and cane, is how does a screen reader, which reads out the information, can it go and access text? Are things like images described? So these are kind of principles, technology-wise, that we're like, okay, do people understand that the environment's going to work for them, but we have to have the skills to navigate that environment? Lara probably knows this one, but I often use the example that it's like when people talk about getting their mobility, like using a cane or even a wheelchair user, and then you get to a library entrance and it has a lovely ramp, but it's got a locked gate in front of it. It's like, how useful is that ramp? So both those things have to work. The skills that people have got and the environment that, what we're talking about PressReader, for example, what Jim said, that him and his team architecturally make it work. And the bridge between the two is you wonderful group of people who will then say to people who are struggling or low in confidence, how can we hold your hand or support you to get there? So I guess when we go into question and answers, it'll be really, I think that there's kind of two sides to it. There's the technical aspect and the human aspect. I'll start with the technical aspect. So I've used different reading services before, very competent user of the technology. So those are aspects of the technology that I don't need to go into at this point because that wasn't a barrier for me. What I would say about PressReader and most library services I've noticed is me and Lara kind of did a little bit of a pilot here. Where I was like, Lara goes into the librarian mode and I was the patron. And I was like, right, okay. And I think I already noticed a comment about things being a little bit convoluted in different places. The accessibility modes, the first thing I noticed it did with PressReader, once I'd logged in, which is a separate discussion about your library's websites. So I'd already registered. I noticed that the website was designed with a lot of information. And what that means for me as a screen reader user is I was getting almost overwhelmed by links and information that didn't really have much context at that point. So for me, me and Lara had a discussion. I was saying, right, I can hear X information. I know where I would like to go. I think I know where I need to go. But there wasn't enough orientation for me to be able to be like, okay, this website is so full of things that I haven't got enough information in my screen reader to take me where I want to be. One example we covered was, and this isn't a full detailed review because there'll be other discussions with Jim, but it's like Lara discussed as a librarian, there is a section to find the app. Because obviously I'm on the website, but there's an app. Now, what was interesting is I, as a screen reader user, couldn't do my skills to get to the application, but Lara kindly bridged the gap and said it's at the bottom of the page. So I worked in reverse and went through my screen reader. I went from bottom up, found where I need to be, and did that. What did the accessibility modes do in difference was two things. Rather than showing all the links, I could get just the main bits of information. And what it did, it just literally condensed everything away from pictures, links, and things. It was just the main key text. And actually, that was way cleaner. But just to give an example, that same find the links for applications, bit like that, those weren't there. So again, these are going to be follow-up discussions. Because again, some of this is, did the environment give me what I needed it to be, even though I had the skills to get there? So that was kind of one area we were like, right, okay. So we've got the app, I've done what I need to do. And in my local library, I was sitting there and I was thinking, right, where do I need to go? So what Lara kind of did in this position was went through a bit of orientation and said, okay, we have some tabs, which I followed her and said, great, yep, I've got those tabs. And then we went through where those books were. What I identified with the screen reader was that actually from the same way the logic was through the website, there was categories, regions, and everything else like that, absolutely fine. The screen reader could integrate, I was getting that great. And the biggest barrier for me actually as a competence user was, let's get the Guardian, just take an example, what's the Guardian? And there was a whole range that came up. I got into the Guardian, and the barrier I then faced, and apologies for any noise in the background, sorry, was that I actually had to find the article, and I was trying to do some searches. But when I went through the searches, it was labeled in a way that wasn't screen reader necessarily friendly. Again, it kind of got to a point where I was like overwhelmed by just long labels, tags, and things. So some of that is a technical barrier. Again, it's maybe something the team can work on. But the actual experience I faced as someone who's blinded by sight was, I would say overall, I could set myself up. Once I got some orientation, I knew where things were. That's fine. But I think there's one final hurdle, and that's the third part, and that's actually finding and enjoying the actual pieces. I think there's some work to be done there, and that's probably an ongoing discussion. So where the bridge, as in Lara or yourselves as librarians in this situation, will be key is that orientation piece. And that's going to be maybe a further discussion around language. How do you say to a blind and partially sighted person, okay, there's the tabs to the bottom, the structure of the page is a certain way, where you would like to go for the most relevant information would be the same as if you were describing to somebody your physical layout of your actual library. So if I come in the main entrance, where is reception, where's the toilets, how have you categorized your books? The digital and physical space share principles, which is the way I like to teach. So I'd say with PressReader and probably most of the platforms we ever discuss with libraries, I think it's just having that ongoing discussion as a team between me as somebody who wants to get access to books and the information. I just think there's a little bit of work to do, but we could definitely have some interactions and questions. But I would say for me, the actual accessibility mode helps, but there's still some work to do. So back to the studio, Lara.
No, that's really helpful. Thank you so much, Davinder. And bearing in mind also, Davinder is talking about his experience with a screen reader. So we haven't done testing around low vision users, in which case those would be your people maybe who are slightly older, people who would use things like enlarging the text or changing the color on the screen. So if you have any questions about that, we can answer those separately, but really appreciate that, Davinder. That's really useful. Yeah, and now we are open for any questions from you guys. Appreciate this is sort of like a beginning discussion, so we probably will have to build on this moving forward, but really pleased that you are here with us today. So I'll start with the questions in the chat, if that's okay, guys, but if anyone wants to put their hand up, do feel free. So our first question was, will we be receiving any of this information in a document? Jim, that's one for you.
Yeah, I think as a first off, what I would like to do, if we can actually share with all of the participants my contact details, and also the link to the PressReader accessibility mode webpage, which I shared with you guys last week, because that provides a very good introduction and a very good overview of the mode itself. As I mentioned when I was speaking, one of the gaps that I can see in what we call our tools for success, which is the marketing material that we make digital versions of for you guys to be able to use locally, is that there's no instruction there at the moment to help you guys actually help your patrons to access this mode. And so that's something that we will definitely be working on very, very soon. And that's where this session is incredibly useful, because it's actually concentrated my mind on looking on what some of the issues are. But then hearing what Devinder's got to say, that's wonderful, because that's exactly the kind of feedback that we need to be able to make this product better. And any further feedback that you guys can provide directly from any used experience, any lived experience from your patrons, or issues you've had yourselves in being able to do what Lara has done with Devinder in helping to bridge that gap. And I love that phrase, because there is a gap, and we need to close that gap as much as we possibly can.
Amazing, thank you. That's really helpful. Juliet from Oxfordshire asked, I'm particularly interested to know if you have any social assets related to accessibility mode. Maybe this is something that you guys could do on top of the information pack you were talking about.
Yeah, as part of the tools for success. And I would encourage, actually, I will include a link for circulation for our tools for success page, because there are all kinds of digital resources there for you to be able to use locally to help promote your service to the whole community. And that does include some social assets that you can use, but not specifically for accessibility mode. And obviously we would need to take some advice and work on it very carefully to make sure that whatever social assets we produce are suitable for the audience that we're trying to reach with that message.
Amazing, fab. Sue from Hertfordshire says, logging in and updating each month is challenging for many of our library members. It isn't easy to find the library login from the home page. Any improvements would be much appreciated. So is that something that you're currently looking at the moment?
That's very much noted. That is more of an issue at the moment, because there have been some changes to what we call our radiant hours access, which means that patrons are needing to re-authenticate pretty much on a monthly basis now. And just as background, and this is really going off topic for today, but the reason that we're doing that, as I said, we have 7,500 odd titles on our platform at the moment, and we have to work very constructively with all of our publisher partners to be able to bring that content to you. As part of that, obviously, we want to pay fairly for their content where that's appropriate. And also we want to limit the damage potentially to their product, so there are issues. Basically, that re-authentication is there as a step to try and minimize the effect of piracy. Right. And piracy might not directly may not directly mean that people in your communities are actually receiving content for free, because obviously you're library members, you're entitled. But there are groups and organizations and individuals who are taking, in some cases, library access and selling that for profit in other parts of the world to titles that they wouldn't otherwise have access to, and that can be quite expensive to have access to. So that's why we've done that, but we're very conscious that that process needs to be simplified for everybody, but particularly with accessibility in mind. So that's very much noted.
Awesome, thank you. By the way, I have to say, generally, like, PressReader is wonderful. I think it's wonderful. Devinder thinks it's wonderful. There is so much fabulous information. So we're not here to sort of like say like, oh, PressReader, you need to do this. It's, again, it is just that continuous improvement, isn't it? We're never at 100% done. It's continuous improvement. So
keep them coming.
That point.
Keep them coming.
Okay, Rosie asks, is accessibility mode available on the app? It's easily found on a desktop.
That's a very good question. Devinder, can I ask you at this point your experience of actually using accessibility mode within the app? Because you mentioned about your journey of actually getting to the app. How was it once you were actually in the app?
Yeah, so the app itself is similar in terms of accessibility in the way it was on the website. The only difference I'd say in terms of the application itself, it's quite straightforward. It's actually already simpler than the website. So that wasn't the issue. The actual screen reader works fine, everything worked fine. The only part that I struggled with, Jim, with what the comments I found was obviously on the Guardian, for example, was it's just the labeling and actually finding a particular article. But navigating, getting through categories, I could go through regions, national, England, Wales, all that was absolutely fine. Drop down menus, absolutely fine. Navigating all that is the only piece was that very final, I want X article or X journal, or that was it. So yeah, the layout, absolutely fine.
Okay,
Great,
thank you.
And then another comment, our visually impaired group all use tablets, so an app version would be very useful. So that's fine, that already exists and accessibility mode is in the app. Rosie says, is that using VoiceOver, Devinder?
Yes. So sorry, I should have said that was the screen reader voiceover, because speaking to Lara, and most of the data shows that the most popular system is Apple and iOS. So for this particular discussion, we thought let's focus it on Apple, but the discussion will go further into other screen readers, things like Talkback on Android. There'll be Narrator on Windows, as Jim mentioned at the beginning. There's a whole bunch of screen readers out there. So, but this one specifically was voiceover. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Neil from Barnet Library says, how useful is the audio description function on PressReader? And does it become obsolete when using a screen reader?
Again, I would really appreciate Devinder's input on this as with regards to how useful it actually is to an end user.
So on that one, Jim, because of what we did with our discussion, we focused mostly on the interactions I haven't tested the audio description, but if that's something that's helpful, more than have a discussion on that. But yeah, I couldn't comment because that wasn't part of this particular one.
Yeah, so Neil, if we can get back to you on that, that would be great. All of the questions I will take away, and anything we don't have answers for today, we'll get back to you. But appreciate this is like a, us beginning to work together. David Pott says, would a demo of PressReader accessibility mode be useful to the group? It'd be great to know if we're using accessibility mode to its full potential. And then Holly from Lancashire says, this would be fantastic. So I think a demo, that would be something really nice that potentially we could work together on.
Absolutely.
Great. Yeah, and lots of people going, fantastic app. I use it myself. Wes says, is it right to say that there isn't a separate accessibility mode in the app, but the app is already thought to be fairly equivalent to the accessibility mode, or accessible mode, sorry, on the desktop? I think that's from you, Devinder.
Yeah, so that's exactly correct. Sorry if I didn't clarify that. On the website, the accessibility mode kind of basically almost looks and feels like what the application already is. So sorry if I didn't make that clear. So when you're on the desktop, the two options are standard mode, accessibility modes. And then when you go in the app is very, very, very much the same as accessibility modes. So yes, that's basically it.
Fabulous. And then last question, we've got one from Rachel. You mentioned digital promotional resources, tools for success. Where can we find this? I think this is in its beginning stages.
Email address and 2 links coming your way with the cooperation of the organisers of today. So
fabulous. Well, we're a minute over, so apologise for being over, but thank you so much for staying with us. Please, Libraries Connected admin team, thank you so much for supporting this. Really appreciate it. And do feel free to share all of our email addresses. We can share that with you to be shared out afterwards. We will get back to you. Great session. Thank you, Holly. Oh, thank you. Everyone's saying thank you. Great session. We really enjoyed it. Really happy to build on this and yeah, to move forward and make things better for your blind and partially sighted customers. So I will hand over to Helen to wrap things up. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. That was really interesting. So thank you. I think we will be sharing some information afterwards. So if you've signed up for this, you will get some information in an email afterwards. So thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.